This week's talk is Inequalities of Force in Self-Defense, or Why You Should Cheat at Every Opportunity. Disclaimer. This is not intended as medical or legal advice, but as a series of mental exercises. Consult your local laws and seek medical advice from medical professionals. Hello again. This is Nino from Essex Precision with more unsolicited advice. This week's topic will be about the inherently uneven nature of self-defense situations and what are some potential options you have. I'll be discussing the following topics. 1. Understanding the opposition. 2. Initiative. 3. The element of surprise. 4. Force mitigation. 5. Windows of opportunity. And 6. What success looks like. Again, if you disagree or have a better way, feel free to share it. This stuff isn't written in stone. We hope to see thoughtful dialogues and critical thinking in the martial arts, tactical, and strategic spaces. Understanding the opposition. Dealing with self-defense situations in real life can be kind of sucky in general. You can end up traumatized and stressed out without even having any physical contact. However, moments of turmoil and suffering can provide powerful opportunities to learn. A good lesson can still be a good lesson, even if the learnings come from less than reputable sources. For example, I detest bullies, but in order to combat them, we have to look at why they victimize their targets and how. Dehumanizing those who might mean you harm often means that you won't look at them as sources of valid information. In learning self-protection skills, we are not learning how to victimize, but how to avoid the strategies and tactics of predators. If we look at those who prey upon other people, there are a couple general themes we can see. 1. There are different types of predators. Some are looking to dominate or intimidate to make themselves feel better, for social credit or for psychological esteem. Some look at other people not as individuals, but purely as resources, financial, material, sexual, etc. Some are hybrids. 2. Predators are looking only for encounters where they think they can win, not for a fight where they think they can lose. They will prey upon those who look like they are unwilling or unable to put up meaningful resistance. They are looking for easy targets and easy payoffs. 3. Bullies and predators will often use ambush strategies where they have superior size, strength, numbers, and/or tools. They will often use strategies to lower someone's guard or cross a physical distance so they can spring a successful ambush. Some of the tools assailants use can be used against them. Instead of thinking of self-defense techniques or how to defend against an aggressor, it can be useful to think in terms of ambush and counter-ambushing. The language sounds more aggressive, but I find that this mindset puts you in a space where you have more agency to act decisively, and you give yourself more time to act. A predator has the initiative at the start of an engagement. They are stacking the odds in their favor because a potential victim has to orient themselves when pressured. In an emergency situation, a person has to deal with a basic decision loop. I understand this as the 3 Fs: fight, flight, or freeze. I've seen other models out there as well, so find some that work for you. Do you choose to flee? Do you choose to fight when threatened? Do you stall for more time as you struggle to process the current situation? Animals are generally pretty good at fight or flight. A house cat that does not like visitors will run away without a second thought. A famous example of freezing would be the deer in the headlights, where a deer will freeze at the sight of oncoming car headlights, since they do not understand the danger that the light represents. It's unfamiliar, so the deer will stay still, and they'll get hit by a moving vehicle. It happens a lot with people too. For example, if someone gets sucker punched, sometimes they will freeze and wonder why the person is attacking them in the first place, rather than fighting or fleeing. In an emergency, seeking to understand why an assault happens during it may not help as you absorb increasing amounts of damage. An assailant can also take the initiative by engaging in a conversation to distract the potential victim. They can keep the victim's mind occupied while they close distance into striking range. Robbers, pickup artists, and serial killers can all use similar tactics since they are predators. Robbers can ask somebody for the time or to ask to borrow a phone for a call. Pickup artists can call someone snobby or stuck up after a rebuffed advance. in order to have their intended target defend themselves verbally and thus lower their guards or engage the predator. Nagging and other versions of this type of emotional manipulation are dangerous. Serial killers like Ted Bundy present as charming and handsome and normal, and use this to take the initiative to set up ambushes. We can also take the initiative in self-protection. In particular, we must take the initiative in maintaining personal range or personal space between ourselves and potential threats. By paying attention to our intuition and maintaining good awareness of our surroundings, we can avoid ambush strategies or, if need be, spring counter ambushes. Predatory strategies are aggressive and often psychologically or emotionally manipulative. Be aware of people aggressively or sneakily closing distance or using the guise of conversation to close distance. Why this matters is that range or physical distance is one of the primary factors in an altercation. Imagine somebody pulling out a handgun and using it to threaten you. If you're 100 yards away, it's much safer than being 10 feet away. The larger distance is not risk-free, but you have more options with escape, evasion, and finding cover with a larger distance. Also, with a larger distance, you can expect diminished accuracy from an assailant. Appropriate distance can shift depending on context as well. With someone asking you the time during daylight hours, it may be perfectly innocent. But if somebody asks you the time at 2 a.m. as you're walking home from a late shift, it could be potentially more sinister. If the distance is close by nature, such as in a cab, a bus, or subway car, other factors will come into play. The element of surprise. A lot of times predators use a basic script or flowchart that they operate by. For example, if someone has a crap day and wants to pick a fight that they can win, they might size up the people around them and then find a suitable target. They may make brief eye contact and then ask something like, "What the fuck are you looking at?" Either they make someone weaker than them flinch and use that to bolster a fragile ego, or they win an easy fight to achieve the same goal. If the potential target does something unexpected, it can break the assailant's script and force the burden of a decision loop on them. This is the same fight, flight, or freeze felt by all animals. A potential response to the same situation could be saying something disarming to the previous provocation, like, "Oh, I'm just zoning out, work's been a pain." If you don't take the bait, it may kill their momentum. If you apologize and acquiesce, it may invite more interactions. It's tough to gauge since every interaction is different. Sometimes acting crazy may work. Sometimes interacting too aggressively is the wrong thing, or interacting too passively could be the wrong thing as well. If you get up and move to get distance, it may be a good option to buy yourself some time. And it gives you more wiggle room so you can see them coming if they want to close range. With awareness skills and preparation, we can have a lot of decision making and personal rules of engagement plotted out beforehand. This can help us have less decision paralysis, i.e. getting stuck with flight, fight, or freeze when we come to a significant crossroads. Oftentimes, aggressors pick and choose targets due to a lack of exits or to them having a captive audience. An aggressive panhandler may choose a subway platform to make people stuck in place more uncomfortable and potentially more likely to hand over resources. Don't get me wrong, there are legitimate people out there in need of aid, and there are also people out there using similar predatory strategies as robbers and pickup artists. These strategies include isolating your target, intimidating, pressuring, aggression, and keeping their mark in an unbalanced state. Check your gut instincts and keep an eye open to overt and subtle manipulation and intrusions upon personal boundaries. Personally, I've given away more supplies and snacks to people in need than I have given out ass whoopings, and I hope to keep it that way. But be prepared. Assailants can trick you into thinking that you're in a verbal conflict, but they use that to bridge the gap for physical assault. The element of surprise works both ways, honestly. If someone is trying to lure you into danger, quick decisive actions like bolting away and hopping a fence can really throw a wrench in their plans. In terms of using surprise effectively, I'm generally not a fan of bluffing a threat or brandishing a tool or weapon since it forgoes the element of surprise. You should not promise an aggressor any actions that you are unwilling to commit effectively. So never bluff anything you aren't willing to exceed by an order of magnitude. In a situation where you tell someone to back off or you'll pepper spray them, if they continue to close range, you should probably spray away. Maybe you need to spray first before announcing it if you're intervening to save someone from an assault. Maybe you can coast away unnoticed and have anonymity on your side before springing a counter ambush. If you promise a course of action to a potential threat, you give them warning beforehand, and then you'll have to manage the consequences of that declaration, otherwise you can be overrun. For example, if you see a situation where emergency services should be contacted, it may prove unwise to tell an assailant you're going to call the cops. Maybe you should call 911 first instead and give them an address and a breakdown of the situation and stay on the line. You could tell the assailant about the police incoming, but they may also try to separate you from your phone and also attack you. You will also have a few minutes to navigate alone until emergency services end up on the scene, and things can get really complicated from there. Who knows what the police can think of the situation when they get there. Say you end up in a confrontation with somebody with a knife or something like that. Even if you end up disarming them, the police on scene may end up actually engaging or shooting you, because if you end up with a knife in your hands, they won't know who's who in an emergency situation. So needless to say, things can end up really tricky. So use the element of surprise judiciously. Force mitigation. In order for an assailant or a group of assailants to hurt a target, they need a motive, the means to carry out their attack, an opportunity to attack, and the intent to carry out their plan. We cannot control what people think, so we really cannot change what motivates people or their intent in an emergency situation. But we can control the means and the opportunity for an attack. I discussed previously the importance of range. If you control the range, you can control any opportunities to attack. That could mean cardio by sprinting away, or finding cover in a firearm situation, or doing something like reversing quickly in your vehicle to avoid a carjacking situation. The element of surprise can give us the jump to counterattack, intervene, and or escape. To understand the means, let us look at things would-be assailants would biologically need to be able to attack. Attackers need vision to identify and locate their targets, so stealth and anonymity can help someone defending, but other tools like high lumen flashlights and pepper spray can also inhibit an attacker's vision. Attackers also need to be able to breathe in order to continue to be physical threats. So again, things like pepper spray can make breathing labored. Also, grappling techniques like chokes can reduce an attacker's oxygen supply and send them into unconsciousness. Attackers also need circulation and mobility, so there are other techniques and tools that can inhibit those factors as well. I find it useful to prioritize range control and also personal safety skills. Range control being the safest, but your mix has to work for you, so study and practice accordingly. Windows of opportunity. Timing is extremely important in a confrontation. If you can exit a situation way before a trap can spring, that is way less strategic, medical, and legal management you'll have to deal with in the end. If you know in your gut that an attack is inevitable, every bit of time you have, every second is golden. All factors can come into play. Tools, training, conditioning, resources in the area, and the risk factors that are changing. I like to use the analogy of a wire snare trap to describe the importance of timing, so forgive the stark imagery. A snare trap is a hanging loop of wire. If an animal moves past the trap and gets a part of its body entangled, the wire will cinch tight as the animal pulls, and it will trap the animal for collection later. Ideal timing allows you to avoid the snare trap entirely. If you're surprised and unaware, you may step on the snare, but with enough luck and awareness, you can remove your limb before the wire cinches tight. If you're caught entirely unawares, the trap may prove fatal or crippling. For example, unfortunately in real life, a coyote caught in a snare trap may prefer to gnaw off one of its own legs to escape. preferring to lose a limb rather than deal with certain death. One of the most common examples I hear regarding crime and timing is to never go to a secondary crime scene. That means, in something like a robbery or carjacking attempt, if someone brandishes a weapon or promises great bodily harm in one location and wants you to go with them to go to a second locale, it's generally a losing proposition. Because moving from a primary location to a secondary location gives the attacker, who has already promised violence, more opportunities and privacy to commit violent acts unimpeded. And it also isolates a defender from help and resources. The same is similar with being restrained against your will in something like a ransom, human trafficking, or kidnapping scenario. Having your limbs bound and mobility restricted greatly limits your options and narrows the windows of opportunities for action. There's a skill set to escaping restraints, and it's an entire course of study. So depending on the potential risk factors in your area, it may be worth researching for yourself. Timing is greatly important for springing a counter ambush or setting up a daring escape. People as animals are generally not very good at multitasking. So acting while an assailant is occupied, otherwise distracted, or surprised, somewhere knocked off balance, it can perfectly set up a window of opportunity. What success looks like. Surviving traumatic situations often doesn't feel like victory. Sometimes the assailants get the upper hand. Sometimes we freeze or do the wrong things. Maybe our loved ones get injured or are lost forever. Maybe there are serious medical or legal consequences. If we are alive and breathing, there are always more windows of opportunity. Sometimes we just need time and perspective to see them. And sometimes we need external help from loved ones, mentors, or trained professionals like licensed therapists. You don't get the perfect actions, reactions, or responses from yourself in an emergency. Sometimes the only things you really get are opportunities for growth and learning. In light of this, I would recommend stacking the deck in your favor and to do what is necessary in an emergency so you can live with the least amount of regrets. So this has been Nino from Essex Precision. I hope you and yours stay healthy and safe in these times of uncertainty. Peace.